Hey everyone, welcome to the I Dare You podcast. This podcast, it's all about you and helping you reach the big goals that you have for your life and what next steps you want to take to get there. And I'm your host, Darren Johnson. Welcome to episode, I'm not sure what episode this is going to be. I'm your host, Darren Johnson. I'll edit all that out. I'm your host, Darren Johnson, and welcome to this very special episode. I am joined by Richard Johnson. Now, you may not know the name, but you will. He is the man, the myth, the legend. He is a guy that has got a story to tell, 86 years old, and we're going to meet him and get to know this. I'll edit all this up. Okay, and Richard Johnson is also my dad. So, Dad, welcome to the podcast. It is really good having you here.
Yeah, hi, Darren. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Okay, Dad, listen, I know you listen to the I Dare You podcast. We want to spend a little time talking about longevity and healthspan, see where this goes, and I appreciate you spending a little time with us. But you are 86 years old. First question, what does it feel like to be 86?
It doesn't bother me at all. As long as you're feeling good, 86 is no biggie.
Well, you've good answer, by the way. Okay, Dad, let's acquaint everyone with more about your background. Here's what I know, and everyone should know. You are a husband, you're a dad, you're a grandpa, grandparent, you're a great-grandparent. Tell me first about how long have you been married, and tell me about your lovely wife, my mom.
We've been married now for 62 years, and it's been some wonderful years. We've been blessed with children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and that's what life's all about.
So good. You feel okay?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Okay, let me collect my thoughts. Yeah, okay, got it. All right, you have how many children, Dad?
4 children.
Okay, and then also number of grandkids and great-grandkids.
9 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren.
Yeah, and married for how many years?
62.
Okay, we got to start there first. Talk to us a little bit about the keys to a successful marriage. What advice would you have for that? What does it take? 62 years.
Well, you have to give and take. Every marriage has things that you need to get used to with each other, and you just have to follow the guide to marriage, I guess would be maybe a way to put it. Because, marry someone, they're going to be different. They're going to think a lot different than you, and you have to somehow hit that middle ground and laugh a lot. Things that you do that are funny, and you just have to laugh about it and have a good time.
That's good advice. Tell me this, though. When did you learn that you're never going to change Mom and she's never going to change you, and that you had that realization that, okay, we just got to, this is a marriage?
Well, that happens pretty quick, If after you're married, living with this person, you find out that there's just a lot of things that there is a difference. When you look at the background of how you grew up, Mom's background was a lot of similarities to mine. So, they had no money and we had no money. So that hurdle is all taken care of. You don't have to worry about that. You know how to save money and how to get the most out of your paycheck. And so that part of life is not a problem, which I think in some cases that does become a problem is the finances. If one grew up with abundance of money, it appears that way, and you grew up with nothing, well, there can be a little problem there to get that ironed out.
We're going to talk about wealth in just a second. But, Dad, when you were a young man, was this always your plan to live the life that you enjoy right now? Incredible.
I don't think I ever made any plans. It just happens that way, You get married, you're kind of, if I can back up there a little bit too, you take a look at, I was off in the Navy and got out of the Navy, and I had no real plans, but when you meet someone that's special, things start happening. And that's the way it was with us. So, right away you start raising a family and getting a good job, and then it all kind of falls into place.
Yeah, so you served America in the military, in the U.S. Navy. What years were you in the Navy, and why did you decide to join the Navy?
That was in 59 to 61. And I guess a lot of, maybe it's mostly guys, I don't know, but there's a little bit of adventure in your blood. You want to see the rest of the world, see what it's like. So I just decided that I was going to go in the Navy. I was working at the time as a farmhand for some wonderful people north of Fergus Falls here in Minnesota. And, he hated to see me go, but he said, "Yeah, I can see your point. I think I went through a little of that at the same age, where I wanted a little adventure, but I started right away milking cows, so that was the end of that." So anyway, so off to the Navy, whole big world when you come from my bringing up, and I hadn't even been in Minneapolis until I was a junior in high school, and that was big. I thought that was huge, going to Minneapolis. But I remember so well standing on the pier looking up at this aircraft carrier that I was assigned to. And I thought, oh my gosh, what did I get into? But it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, what was all your travels now on that aircraft carrier, the USS Essex, and what was your favorite port of call or favorite part of the world? You've been places I've never been to. Do you have a favorite?
They all have their uniqueness. I guess we stopped at Naples, Italy, probably more times than other places, and that was cool place. The probably one of the big adventure there, though, was traveling down through the Suez Canal. We took the aircraft carrier down through the canal, and it pretty well filled up the canal, and that was quite an adventure.
Yeah, it must have been. Thank you again. I've mentioned this to you many times, but you and thousands of other men and women have served America, and so thank you for your service. I can't imagine that feeling. I realize this now, but that was not. Yeah, obviously, that wasn't too long after World War II. What evidence did you see going around Europe of the I guess the impact or the impact of World War II? Anything to add to that?
The only thing I remember in Italy, I remember seeing one of those, they call it a German pillbox. It's a cement, kind of had a round roof on it, and that's where they had their guns in there guarding that city. And that was kind of fun to see. But as far as covering up all the destruction, it really is amazing how fast you can get total destruction and get it cleaned up and make a nice city out of it again. That always amazes me. Yeah.
All right, so now what did you learn about America through your service in the U.S. Navy, Dad?
America is still the nicest place. If maybe it is to me, because I am an American, but we just have to cherish freedom. That freedom to do all the things that we can in this world. And so, no, I think America is still. I can still remember we were overseas on a 6-month tour of duty. Coming back into Florida, where our home port was, we all stand around the whole perimeter of the flight deck as we enter that port. And we all had our nice dress blues on. And I'll tell you what, I don't think you can help but getting a little lump in your throat. Because when you see that American coastline again, that's home. And you're proud of what you did when you served, and It's just a huge amount of pride. That's one thing we just never want to lose.
Well said. Well said. Okay, Dad, look, your life it's ordinary. However, it's extraordinary in what you have accomplished with your life. And when you look at what true wealth looks like, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. It's a lot about, sure, it's about money. In fact, Dad, there's a survey out that shows when it was done by Charles Schwab, and they asked people, what is wealthy? And you know what number they had? How much money you needed to have in the bank to be considered wealthy? Do you have any guess at all what that would be? In fact, let me ask you, to be wealthy, how much would you have to have in the bank?
Boy, I don't know. I had a good job, worked for the local power company, had a good job. No big bonuses that you could sock away someplace so we always had a nice home, a nice car, had good clothes on our back, and we ate good. So to me, that's all there is. There is no more. And I think sometimes people strive for something else that's out there. And if you have all those ingredients and a good faith, you really got it all. That's what life's all about. You need to, at that point, just relax and enjoy the ride.
It's good. I've heard that before, actually, from you. So it's good to hear it again. But look, the number that the survey and Charles Schwab said, you need to have $2.5 million in the bank to be considered wealthy. And I'm hearing from you that no, there's a better measure of wealth. Am I close?
Yes. No, I can't even imagine having that kind of money. We have friends that we know that have a lot more money than we do, but they all do the same thing. We go to church on Sunday morning. We go out and eat a steak once in a while. We enjoy vacation. We take trips. So what's all the big fuss about having all those huge amounts of money? I don't know. I think if we had 100,000 when I retired, that probably was it. And we still got some of it left. So it just depends on what kind of life you want to live.
It's good. Well, let's talk more about this then. So the financial side of things, that we are as a society fixated on money, in part because we can measure it. I mean, you can go into your bank account right now in your app, Dad and everybody. You can see exactly what's in the bank account. You can see the debit transaction. We just had breakfast. You can see that's right out of the checking account. I mean, it's almost like a fixation on this number. But there's other things to measure that have arguably just as much, but a whole lot more value than just the money in the bank account. Let's talk about some of these, Dad. There's a research study out. I want to get your take on this from Harvard University. It's one of the longest longitudinal studies ever done. It's over 80 years old. It's about the true essence of happiness. And you know what they found in this, Dad, is that the factor in happiness is relationships. Not the number of relationships, but the quality of relationships. So here you are, 86 years old. You could be in this study, but what would you add to that? Agree, disagree, and why?
Well, certainly agree to that. Money doesn't, there again, too, you kind of observe those that do have a lot of money. I think, are they getting anything more out of life than I am? No, they aren't. So you need to relax in life, practice your faith. I think we all know that faith is a big part of your life, because there are things that come along in life. We lost a baby after birth. Those kind of things happen, but when you believe and you have faith, they help you through it. And we went on living, and then we had 3 more babies after that.
Yeah, and let me go a little bit further on that one. Okay, Dad, the study, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this. Hold on. Back up. Let me read this. Yeah, so this study, Dr. Valiant, yeah. So this study, it's a Harvard study of adult development. The critical point is the single greatest predictor of physical health at age 80 was relationship satisfaction at age 50. So think back to when you were 50. Do you agree with that? I mean, the relationships that you had when you were 50 is one of the greatest predictors of your health today. I mean, you're 86. Piece that together for me.
Well, I don't know. That certainly would make sense. I think a lot of studies have been made of people in their 50s, and oftentimes they get adventurous with other people that they shouldn't, and they get that, what do they call it, 40-year itch or whatever it is. You know, they lose that relationship and at a time when it should be even stronger than ever. When you think about it, if you're in your 50s, then you've gone through the child raising children and all the things that come about through that. So, no, I think relationships are really huge. So
yeah. So now though you're now 86, and there's something else we need to talk about. Those who listen to the podcast, you know this. We've talked about the loneliness epidemic that is all around the world, but certainly all ages are dealing with it. As a reminder, 2023 Surgeon General report on the chronic 23 report on the epidemic of loneliness and social isolation. And it really highlighted the fact that, back to relationships, that if you do not have strong relationships, in fact, loneliness is one of the most damaging aspects to your health, or dying early. And it's worse for you than smoking cigarettes or not getting exercise or drinking excess alcohol. So loneliness. So what have you and Mom experienced on this, as you now are well into your 80s, on this loneliness epidemic? What do you see? What are you experiencing?
I guess I don't think we ever felt that at all. You know, there again, after we kind of got you kids to adulthood, then that was about the time that we purchased the lake property and went full bore and making that a fun place where you kids raising your babies could come and enjoy it. So relationships, I think, were always really strong. And I know Mom and I just pitched right in. We all had our job to do, and we did it. And so relationships to us, I think, if anything, they got stronger even at that point in life.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And one thing I want to highlight for everyone listening, and just some background. So Mom and Dad bought lake property when I was in my early 20s, and Michelle and I were starting to have kids. And so they with intent, purchased a lake property that did become this gathering place for my brother and my sisters, and as we had kids, then the cousins. You know, I look at the way that the cousins have relationships with one another. None of that would have happened. None of it would have happened had it not been for that gathering place on the lake. And so my point on all this, as we are growing older and you have kids and you're wondering how to strengthen those relationships, my takeaway from watching what Dad did was looking for ways to create opportunities for experiences. It's not about the things, but in this case, it was that lake place that became the gathering spot. It could be other experiences, but if you just drift and expect it to happen, it is never going to happen. So what do you think of that, Dad?
Yeah, no, that's right. You have to kind of, I guess, you get back into kind of planning, you know. That was one of the things that we always wanted, and I know Mom was really strong on that, and I give her so much credit because she was that real force to, you know, to buy that lot. And maybe I would have been not quite as anxious to get in any kind of debt, but no, she pushed it. She said, we'll make it fine. And she had that in mind, that how important that would be toward relationship with the kids. And so I think the kids nowadays, they even talk about it now after we're in our 80s, talk about all the pancakes that Mom fried on that for all the grandkids and how they'd get up in the morning and have that fun, that relationship.
Yeah. One more area on financial. So when is enough enough? Everyone is chasing something and trying to get to the next rung on the ladder, and it's really tough to know when have you arrived. And maybe that's the biggest trap in life. I don't have it figured out. Do you? When is enough enough?
I don't know either. I guess, enough to me, you can do so much in life with $100,000 that you think you have to have $1 million for. And you still, how much money does it take to go on a hike, go into a park or where you live, Darren, out in Idaho, get up there in the mountains? I mean, doesn't cost anything, and how refreshing that is. Doesn't cost anything. So it just depends on it. I guess if you have $1 million, you might tend to buy a resort in Florida. I don't know if that's what you want to do, but there are so many things that are so refreshing and wealthy to your mind and body. Just taking a good hike, no cost at all. Take your dog with you. I know you do that, Darren, and I always envy that. So that's the way I look at it.
We were talking last night over dinner that this whole topic of when is enough, and we've talked about when we all fall in the trap of doing something later. And when we have that mindset of we're going to get to that later, that really becomes never. Because, and by the way, we're talking about some of the issues I know many of our listeners are dealing with. When you have young kids and they're 8 years old, later means when they're probably 16 or 20 years old, and they're never going to be 8 years old again. When you come around to the later and they're 16, you've missed that window of developing a relationship with them. And whatever you had in mind, it rarely happens. You've lived a whole lot longer than I have, Dad. Do you agree with that? Disagree? What do you think?
Oh, I think that's true. It's so important to be with your kids, when they're especially in their growing. When they get to be 16 or so, their minds start. They have their mind, and which is good. But it's also a point in time where it's a little hard as a parent to maybe do everything the way you think they should be done, because they do have a mind of their own.
Okay. So I want to put an exclamation point on this. If you think about time spent with family, the time spent with your parents and the time spent with your parents and siblings peaks in childhood and then declines sharply after you reach age 20. So look, we all know this. We leave home, we get caught up in our own life, and you tend to just fail to recognize that your time here is limited. So the message here that Dad is talking about is cherish those relationships, especially time spent with children. I mean, your time spent with your kids peaks in the early years of their lives, and then it declines sharply thereafter. You think you have 18 years with them at home, and I can tell you that that's not the case. You probably have 13 or 14, because then they start working, they start driving, and all of a sudden you realize that you thought you had 18, but it becomes 13 years. Again, whatever age your kids are, remember, a high percentage of the time you'll ever spend with them in your entire life is right when they're younger. But as soon as they leave home, you don't see them as often. I'm stating the obvious, but I want you to make sure you don't miss the obvious, that when they're home, those are the golden years to make sure you develop the relationships with them. Yes?
Yes, very true, Darren. And it's just it's so much fun to see your kids grow into that adulthood. It's just, and if you have good relations with your children when they're young, even that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, you can have so much fun with them. And I think that carries on to when they're in their teens too. They get their own mind, but yet they still have fun with you as parents.
Dad, did you know that today's kids are on their smartphones? They're in front of a screen, on average, 7 hours every single day. 7 hours a day. And the growth of social media with Instagram and TikTok, and where I'm going with this, and I'm leading the witness, but we're seeing tremendous issues with mental health of today's youth, our adolescents, our kids. What do you see in all this? You've been kind of an observer watching your grandkids grow up, but for those who are listening who want to help their kids have better mental health, what do you see?
Well, social media, I guess I don't understand A1 or AI, whatever it is, some of those things. I do know one thing that is absolutely, you can watch it all the time. It doesn't matter where you go. If you go to a hospital waiting room and you're sitting there waiting for your turn, everybody is in their nose has looking at the cell phone. And one of the things that we've lost is that power of conversation. We don't converse with people anymore. It's like when you go up to a stranger in our day, we'd go up to a stranger and you'd have a conversation, probably 15, 20 minutes conversation. You find out all about where they worked, how long they've been married, how many children do you have, and, then you go, you come home from there and you tell your spouse, I met this guy, here's why. See, we lost that. When you approach someone now, we notice this quite often with the younger people. It's like they think, oh, what's this old guy? What's he up to anyway? And we just want to visit. I like to know. Even young people. I love to talk to young people. What's their place in life? What do you want to be? Do you want to go to college? Do you not? And you get some real good conversations going. But that's a big thing I see, is that we've lost that art of conversation.
What would you do for someone who says, you know what, you're right, we have, and I'd like to get better at the art of conversation? What is the one thing that they could do or try today?
I guess just make a concerted effort to talk to people. Get them away from the cell phone a little bit. I find myself doing this quite often. I don't be a pest, but I like to find out about people, talk to them. So I'd like to see people do more of that. Make a little effort at trying to talk to people, getting away from the cell phone a little bit. There's good things on the cell phone. There's a lot of junk too. And if the kids are on there for 7 hours at a time, they're getting a lot of that junk stuff too. And I think they'd be better off if they worked at it a little bit. You take meal times at home too. Put the cell phone away someplace. You don't need that for that 25 minutes that you eat and talk. Visit with your brothers and sisters and mom and dad. Put that cell phone away. There's nothing that important that it has to take place during the dinner hour.
Right. Let me add to that. So think about when you were growing up, Dad, born in 39. So yeah, up until in the 40s when you were growing up. Did you know, Dad, today that the average child has 3 minutes per day of what they call unstructured play? In other words, where they go outside and they play 3 minutes a day. What was your childhood like, and how often were you outside?
Oh, we spent hours outside. I mean, I was such a funny dad in a way, because if I caught my kids sitting in the house reading a book, I chased them outside. And, we would spend hours outside. In the wintertime, we would make skating rinks and all those kind of things. I could tell you stories that last a long time, Darren, about stuff. Skating rink, can I just share this? We've cleared a path on a big slough that we had close to our property. And then we took a 5-gallon pail and we put about a little over half of it in sand. And then we soaked the sand with fuel oil. And then we lit it on fire, and that's what we set on the ice down where we skated. So we can go over and warm our hands. These are the kind of things that the average youngster now just has no opportunity to do, these creative, fun things,
That would get you arrested now.
Yeah, it probably would. I'm glad it didn't explode, but fuel oil wouldn't explode. I think we even tried kerosene. I don't know if there is kerosene now.
Well, for everyone listening, for parents of young kids, and I know it's a different world right now, but here's one thing that came up on a previous podcast episode. As parents, we're so concerned about sending our kids outside with unstructured play. In other words, think about how you grew up. You were roaming around the neighborhood until the streetlights came on. And that's how we grew up. And now it's a little bit different. But if you have your kids inside at, at home, online, on their smartphone, on social media, I will contend to you the risk of that phone is a lot greater than whatever is happening as they're climbing the tree. What do you think?
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah. Oh, there's so many fun things to do outside. Come winter, went sliding on the big hills. Spend hours doing that. And the thing of it is, summertime. Then we hit the river for our swimming. Someone asked my mother once, don't you ever worry about all your kids down there on the river in that swift current? No, she said, I just know the Lord will take care of them. I let it go. That's my mother.
A little different now, for sure. Okay, Dad, I'm going to shift gears now on physical wellness. Physical wellness is where it all begins. If you don't have your health, your physical health, it is game over. You are a cancer survivor, and obviously at 86, you got, different things you're working through at 86 years old. But how have you been able to remain so mobile over the years? Any advice or secrets that have done to make sure you're functional and mobile and being able to drive and do things around the house?
Well, you got to keep moving. That is the big thing. You have to do a lot of walking, a lot of work. I retired from my job with a power company. I was 58 years old. They had an early buyout. I took it, and then my wife and I started laying hardwood floors. We worked many late hours. Worked hard at it. And we did that for I think I was like 74 or 75 when I finally quit. But we did hardwood floors in this whole area, and that's you got to keep moving, got to keep your brain working, get your physical. Otherwise, you just kind of melt away.
Hey, Dad, looking back on your life, and you're just getting warmed up, by the way, but what are you most proud of as far as a time when you took a chance on something or someone? What are you most proud of in that area?
I guess my Navy days was certainly a take charge kind of thing. I think I remember visiting with my mother. Are you sure you want to do this, Richard? I said, oh, yes, I'm going. I'm gone. So she said, well, okay. Well, that's the way she was. My dad never said too much. My mom was kind of the engineer there, and he was a wonderful guy, wonderful dad, and no complaints there. But it's interesting.
Good. You got it. That's good. So looking back on your life, then you would highlight your days in the Navy as some of the probably one of those things that you're the most proud of. That is incredible.
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of pride in doing that. And the other thing too is when I was 14 years old, that's when I started working for a farmer, and he was a kind of a guy that he had me doing things that nowadays they'd have to be 25 or 30 to do, because I took care of horses and milked cows and drove tractors and at 14. And so there's just a lot of pride in being able to grab a hold of life and do it. Just get it done.
But Dad, there's so many reasons why we wouldn't do that. We talk a lot in the podcast about comfort zones. We're all in our comfort zones. Why? Because it's comfortable here. But tell me more about why that's so important about getting out of our comfort zone. What have you learned over the years about getting out of your comfort zone?
Yes, that's always hard for all of us. Comfort zone is a big thing, but you just gain so much out of life when you step out of that zone. There's so many things to do, and you talk about comfort zone. I can tell you this: when I got out of the Navy and met my wife, Sonja, I didn't know what I was going to do. She said, why don't you apply at the power company? And I said, well, that won't amount to anything. They get so many people trying to get in there because it's a good place to be employed. And I said, so I don't think. She said, well, how would you know if you don't try? Okay, that sounded reasonable. So I stopped there. I filled out and 2 weeks later I had a job. So that shows you right there. I was out of my comfort zone. I had never climbed poles before or worked with electricity, but I learned it, and I learned it fast because it was a good place to be, good place to work. Stayed with them for 32 years. So those are the comfort zone you talk about, that you face in life, and you need to kind of look at it and think, maybe if I did do this, I would have this and this and that. I mean, this would be good. I'll have good employment and good benefits, good salary. So go to work, stay with it.
It's good. Dad, the question of, and again, I keep referring back to different things in the podcast, but a question that we've talked about is, what do you want your life to be 10 years from today? And here's a question to everyone listening. Will you be dancing at your 80th birthday? And that's it's rhetorical, but it's also a real question. Will you be dancing at your 80th birthday? And if the answer is yes, then you're going to need to take some steps in order to make sure that happens. You can't just, drift there. You got to be intentional about it. But Dad, I remember you were, for Hannah's wedding in Jackson, Wyoming. That was 3 years ago. You were 80, at that time, 83. One of my favorite photos of you is you and Hannah dancing at her wedding. I thought it was just fantastic. Do you remember that photo?
Yeah, yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah, I like to dance. As you get older, you don't have quite the smooth moves that you had, but it's fun.
Yeah, but now I want you just to think about everyone listening who's not 80 yet. But what is that like, to be able to be at a granddaughter's wedding and to be on the dance floor dancing with your granddaughter? Because I think that's aspirational for all of us. And what does it take to get there?
Well, you need to take care of yourself. Again, you get back to physical things. I guess my wife and I never have consumed any alcohol, don't smoke. You try to do all the things that take care of your body so that when you are 80, you can have that cherished moment where you do dance with your granddaughter. That's special. Sometimes, maybe we as the older one don't think it's that special, but you can bet to that granddaughter it is. So, you just take care of yourself and, just plan to dance when you're 80 years old.
Okay, Dad, it's time. You know where I'm going here. At the end of every episode, I ask my guests, what is your I Dare You challenge for all of us? So now it's your turn. You would dare us to do what to live a better life? What do you think?
You need to, I think faith is a big thing. You just need faith. That's the cement, the glue that holds it all together. So live a clean life. Live a good, clean life. Obey the rules. Obey laws. They're meant there for a purpose. So live a good, clean life. Don't get involved in those things that get you in trouble. And so that's what I would tell people. And the other side of it is be satisfied. Don't always be clamoring for more and more and more. Be satisfied. If you got in my case, a wonderful wife and 4 great kids and all these family members, there is no more. That's it. Just settle down. Settle.
That's great. Hey, I have a quick follow-up on that, though. You talked about living a good, clean life, and it sounds like one of the things I'm taking from that is do everything you can to make good decisions throughout life. And no one's perfect. We all, we all make a lot of bad decisions. What if someone is listening and they know that they have really made, a mess of things in a lot of different ways in their social in their social wellness and mental and physical and financial. And what advice would you give to them if they said, you know what, it's too late for me. I have really made a mess of things.
No, I don't think it's too late. You need to get help from maybe some proper people that are trained to help you with these things. That's apparently you've gone astray, but they all can be fixed. You just have to have that strong commitment that you're going to change your life, and you're going to want it to be a nice, clean life, full of fun and adventure, and your relationship with your spouse is so important in making that happen. You have to have strong relationships, with your spouse. It has to happen. All these things follow of faith and relationships with your wife and children are so important. So make up your mind you're going to do it and get it done.
Okay, well, there's a mic drop. Well done. Dad, I've talked to a lot of guests here on the podcast, well over 160. Each one of them has huge resumes and very successful. Have done this and that, but I can't imagine anyone being more successful than you. They could look at that life that you have led and are living, an extraordinary life in so many ways beyond the financial. And you've been a great role model for me, Dad. And now it's been a pleasure to introduce the I Dare You podcast audience to you and how you live things. And I hope, and I know they've gained some insights here. So love you, Dad. And thanks for being here on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun. Really an honor having you here.